here's the question. Who or whom is responsible for their collapse? Stephen A.
First of all of them are to some degree. There are a multitude of bigger culprits in all of this, however. Roy Hibbert's a culprit because he's opened his mouth and he has said what he said. I applaud his honesty, his candor. I genuinely like Roy Hibbert. But at the same time, you can't talk what you talk and then be handed the ball 5 times in the game's first 9 minutes and miss all 5 of your shots after calling everybody out and you're 7 feet 2. It just can't happen. It just can't happen.
Plus he had
0 points. You talk the talk.
Yeah.
You've got to walk it.
Yeah.
And that's not what he's done. That's not entirely his fault. But you've got to do that. Mm-hmm. The other person who is a major culprit in all of this is Lance Stevenson. I'm a fan of this kid. This kid can play. Brooklyn, New York, Lincoln. He can ball. Got a lot of heart. Okay?
Yep.
Tremendous talent. Great upside. He's just young. It's nothing to crucify him about or whatever. But here's the problem. He's playing for a new contract.
Yep.
Paul George already got his. And there's friction. Not that they dislike each other, because they don't dislike each other. Mm-hmm. Not that they don't talk to one another, because they do talk to one another. But if you Paul George and you got this money, you got a ball. And since he's been sporadic, Lance Stevenson, he's got 2 issues. Number one, he's a rough rider. He ain't scared of anything. And he's going to step on the court and say, damn it, if y'all ain't going to do it, I'm going to do it. Mm. And he's going to try too much. He's going to make mistakes along the way because you're trying too hard because he wants to win that badly. But just as badly as he wants to win, he also wants to get paid. And he doesn't want to sit there and watch dudes who have already gotten paid messing with his money by not producing the way they're supposed to be producing. Therefore, the team is not as successful, and as a result, it cost him his money. That's his problem. And so that's part 2 of it. Part 3 of it is that because he has a problem with losing and with his money being jeopardized, Lance Stevenson is going to speak up. And he's not going to speak up in the most diplomatic of ways. Let's just leave it at that. And as a result of that, you're going to get in George Hill's face. You're going to get in Paul George's face. You're going to get in Roy Hibbert's face because all of them are making at least $8 million par. and Lance Stevenson ain't there yet. You know, so this is going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. So, again, you've got that. Then there's the Frank Vogel issue because you're the head coach. You're young. But you got to handle this. I'm here to tell you something right now. Don't turn around relatively soon. Vogel might be in trouble. Brian Windhorst was absolutely right when he pointed out what he pointed out. Regardless of what Larry Bird, Donnie Walsh, any of those guys say, this is a first-class organization. They know what they're doing. Frank Vogel is a great young coach, got a lot of promise. Yep. But when you have this kind of collapse and you combine that with the fact that he wasn't necessarily Larry Bird's guy to begin with, okay? It was Jim O'Brien, right? And he got the job that way.
He did.
You know, because Jim O'Brien was let go. Yep. It's a lot.
And we'll talk about that to deal with at the top of the hour.
Yes.
And when you say turn around quickly, this team is looking like a second-round exit right now.
I'm not going to lie to you, Skip. They're looking like a first-round.
First-round exit?
They look like and if that happens, and I'm not saying it will because I still believe they will get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But if they got bounced out in the first round, I don't think Frank Vogel survives.
No. There's no way. I want to say again, I have never, ever seen anything like this collapse this late in the season happening to a contending team. I remind you, last night, this team with the best home record in the NBA got blown out in the first quarter by an Atlanta Hawks team clinging to the playoffs, an Atlanta team that had recently lost 6 in a row. And the only reason Atlanta is clinging is because Carmelo hurt his shoulder. That's just me. I think Carmelo, if he'd been right, they would have beaten Washington the other night. Sure. I don't know if they'd beat Miami, but they would be right on Atlanta's tail. That's another discussion.
They'd be a game out instead of 2.
They'd be a game out. They'd have lost Miami. If we're doing blame pie here, I got to cut the biggest piece and leave it on Paul George's plate. Wow. And I'll tell you why. I think this all started when he went into his slump. This is a man who has superstar potential. I think everybody was poised for him to elevate into the superstar stratus when the season started. And I think he's regressed. in his slump. And we've talked about his off-court distractions that help lead to his slump. He's the guy. He's the go-to guy. He's that guy you just talked about. When it's time, you got to give him the ball and get out of the way, and he wins the game. When he started not being able to do that, all of a sudden, all the dominoes fell backward because Roy Hibbert did talk a lot. He's an eloquent man, and I think he was right about what he said, but he was pointing fingers at people who are selfish. He didn't name names, I don't think, but we know where he was probably pointing the fingers. And then he couldn't back it up on the floor. And when you point and then you can't back up, you got big locker room issues. Frank Vogel is overmatched right now with this team. It's way over his head to try to correct this. He was desperate last night, so he benched Roy for the rest of the game, and Roy pouted at the end of the bench and came out a little late to start the second half. So everything's on notice now, and it brings us back to Larry Bird, who the players know that Frank was not a Larry guy. So the players are they got doubt in their psyches about their head coach because the big guy upstairs, they know, he's not really on board with our young head coach. So it leads to the issue. Should Larry Bird walk downstairs, say thank you but no thank you, and take over this team? I'll tell you why he won't do it, because he's too shrewd to do it. It's such a mess right now. I don't think even the great Larry Bird, who proved he could really coach as well as be a GM, but I don't think even the great Larry Bird taking a seat on the bench would turn this around.